A lot's gone wrong at homeless shelters under the watch of the Salvation Army. Today, they're asking the public to continue to trust them, days after an employee assaulted a resident.
I would hope that our community would look beyond this incident.
Colorado's Department of Corrections still won't say why multiple top staffers are on leave and under investigation, yet the number continues to grow. A genetic testing company is up for sale. Better delete your DNA before they sell it. And high egg prices are inspiring new backyard chicken operations. Just think before you buy.
If you do it wrong, it can be detrimental.
Chicken 101 is in session tonight on Next. It started with hundreds of 911 calls to a homeless shelter. Then there was a double homicide there. Then an employee sexually assaulted a resident. Now the Salvation Army is asking the public to have faith in their work as the city of Denver begins limiting the funds they give to the organization. Here's Angeline McCall.
At City Council, a discussion that's not unfamiliar to Council member Chantel Lewis.
I have said many times that I have deep concerns regarding the Salvation Army and their ability.
Clearly, this is the part where I tell you that we're having some technical difficulties. We'll get back to Angeline's story in just a little bit with the Salvation Army's response to exactly what's going on back and forth with the city of Denver. Moving now to the state capitol, a trio of gun control bills is in the spotlight at the Colorado State Capitol this week. Even in a year where lawmakers are supposed to make $1 billion in budget cuts, these bills have been among the most controversial. They faced dozens of amendments so far. Today, the Senate Democrats passed a bill putting some new restrictions on gun shows, requiring gun show coordinators to carry liability insurance, implement additional security measures, and follow the state's 3-day waiting period for gun purchases. They also approved a bill raising the minimum age to purchase ammo from 18 to 21, with amendments creating exceptions for some 18 to 20-year-olds in the military or with certain hunting licenses. Democrats called it a, quote, modest proposal to bring ammo sales in line with existing restrictions on gun sales. But Republicans argued new restrictions will be bad for local businesses, especially those near state lines.
Now you can't walk into a drugstore and buy cold medicine. You have to get somebody to help you with that, because we know that there are some uses of that cold medicine that we don't like. And so this seems like a modest proposal.
I live in rural Colorado where I can just drive 45 minutes north, and if a 15-year-old wants to buy ammunition in Nebraska, there is no age limit on rifle ammunition. That's going to hurt our small businesses here in Colorado.
So both of those bills passed with amendments. So instead of going straight to the governor's desk for a signature, they've now got to go back to the House for a revote. Meanwhile, the Senate will have to revote on new amendments to a bill that requires additional certifications for owners of some semi-automatic guns with detachable magazines. The second of 2 deans seriously wounded by a student with a gun inside East High School a couple years ago has now also decided to file a lawsuit against Denver Public Schools. 17-year-old student shot 2 deans 2 years ago this past weekend. Both survived, and now both have decided to not just sue DPS, but also sue members of its former and current school board. Dean Eric Sinclair's lawsuit says DPS should have considered the shooting, quote, foreseeable, because administrators were regularly searching some students for weapons despite not actually being adequately trained. He and the other dean, Wayne Mason, say the district is also responsible because it kicked out school resource officers a few years prior to the shootings. Both deans are suing under a 2015 state law that requires school districts to protect students and staff from, quote, foreseeable acts of violence. That's the important word there. We reached out to the district and board for comment. Both chose not to comment. The Colorado Department of Corrections continues to quietly place more employees on leave without telling people why. Today, our 9 News Investigates team learned about 7 more employees now on paid administrative leave. For those of you counting at home, that brings the total to 14 right now. More than half of those employees on leave right now work at the Denver Reception and Diagnostic Center. 8 employees there have all been put on leave since the start of the year, including the warden, a captain, 2 lieutenants, and 2 majors. The department, though, won't say why. But when we requested the use of force reports for an incident back in December, the department said those records are a part of an ongoing investigation. The Department of Corrections has not yet clarified what type of investigation that is. Some of the other employees on leave include the wardens at 2 other prisons and the director of adult parole. So you know those situations that pop up where you think, maybe if I just ignore the problem, it'll go away. That's basically what former District Attorney Linda Stanley is doing. And it's not going well for her.
My name is Linda Stanley. I'm the District Attorney for the 11th Judicial District.
If Linda Stanley thought her problems would just disappear after the Colorado Supreme Court took her law license away for misconduct, she was wrong. The former DA for Chaffee, Fremont, Custer, and Park counties was back in court again last week. Or at least she was supposed to be. She didn't show up. Much like the time she was in office as the elected DA, Linda Stanley was absent for the hearing on the county's lawsuit against her. A statement from the chair of the Fremont County Board of Commissioners read, "She's being sued by the county commissioners in the district that she used to represent. They want nearly $100,000 of taxpayer money back that she allegedly used to fund her legal defense in her ethics case." Stanley was disbarred for a long list of violations, including launching a secret investigation into the judge in the Suzanne Morphew murder case. She was served with the lawsuit from county commissioners in December. That's the last they heard from Linda Stanley. She hasn't appeared in court. She hasn't filed a response to the lawsuit. And now she's in default. A judge ruled that Linda Stanley must now pay more than $300,000, triple the amount owed, to the county she used to work for.
So the suit also alleges fraud and civil theft, not usually the type of thing that you can just run away from indefinitely. In fact, the amount of money that she owes will gain 8% interest every year that she doesn't pay. Moving out of the weather, it's going to be a scorcher this week, at least for this time of year. Kathy Sabin, we could see some record-breaking heat later this week.
How about that? Do you like this kind of weather?
It's beautiful. I'm ready for the almost 80s.
I know, it's crazy. But you know, in our snowiest month, when we have a weather pattern like this, the other shoe will fall, and it's fallen on the weekend. So I don't know how you're going to feel about that. But today was beautiful, and without all of that wind that we had to deal with yesterday. Glorious view along the Front Range, great visibility, and temperatures above average again. Average high is about 59, and we were 70 in Denver today, almost 80 in southeastern Colorado. And your weather headlines include elevated fire danger as a result of this unusually warm, dry weather pattern in our snowiest month. But there is some rain and snow in Denver's forecast later this week. Current temperatures right now, 68 in the city. 65 in Eagle. Talk about great weather for spring skiing. This is a great week of travel, getting into the mountains, and comfortable conditions across the metro area. We're not dealing with the horrendous wind we had yesterday. Remember, gusts of 70 and 80 miles per hour. A weak front came in this morning, a dry front. That helped to calm things down, drop temperatures a couple of degrees, but we're running above average and will continue to do so as high pressure builds in from the west, keeping the storm track to the north of us. So other than a few clouds passing through tonight and lots of sunny conditions tomorrow, and then a few more clouds coming in tomorrow night. Relatively quiet weather until Friday. This evening, beautiful for a walk with the dog and maybe a little dinner on the patio. Temperatures running mild. And then we get into the mid-70s tomorrow, close to 80 on Thursday, our warmest day of the week. I think we'll break the record of 78. Increasing clouds, still warm Friday with mountain snow. Spring skiers, pay attention to that Friday-Saturday forecast. Cooler in Denver Saturday with a chance for rain, and then cold enough for that rain to change and mix to snow early Sunday morning. Highs in the 40s and 50s on Sunday, clearing out, and then a little bit cool and unsettled as we move into the first week of April. Mark, next week is April.
Almost there. Kathy Sabin, thank you. Hey, gotta love live TV, right? Let's get back to the story that we started the show with and kind of paused right in the middle of it. We were talking about the Salvation Army, the hundreds of 911 calls to a homeless shelter on Quebec started by the city. Then there was a double homicide there. Then just last week, we got news of an employee sexually assaulting a resident. So now the Salvation Army is responding to the public for the first time, asking them to have faith in the work as the city of Denver starts kind of questioning how much money they're going to send to the organization. Here's Angeline McCall.
At City Council, a discussion that's not unfamiliar to Councilmember Chantel Lewis.
I have said many times that I have deep concerns regarding the Salvation Army and their ability to keep folks safe.
She's talking about the Salvation Army that runs the All-In Mile High shelter at the former Doubletree off Quebec, the site of a double homicide a year ago. And now an employee there is charged with sexual assault of a resident.
Nay.
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 On Monday, a no vote for a contract that would have expanded the Salvation Army's housing services, work entirely separate from this troubled site.
There's no reason to approve additional dollars when they have shown that they are not able to keep our communities safe.
The mayor's office says the city will do random drop-ins and monitor the DoubleTree. We asked Lewis today if that would be an acceptable solution.
It's not enough, but we'll make it enough. Like, we'll get to a point to working with the administration and the departments to make sure that we are solving this in a real way.
Despite a lack of confidence from council, a spokesperson for the Salvation Army said people, quote, need to have faith in their work.
I can say that I was personally disappointed in the vote last night, and the Salvation Army will do everything it can to continue this partnership.
In just a matter of weeks, another Salvation Army contract up for a vote at City Council. Again, this time directly related to the DoubleTree, meaning Council will be able to decide if they'll continue to let the organization run things. Lewis says perhaps it's time to start looking elsewhere.
And I want the best provider in place to be able to provide those services. And in my time that I've been on council, that has not been the Salvation Army.
That upcoming contract will be up at council in a matter of weeks. It's specific to not only the DoubleTree, but 4 Salvation Army run shelters in total. I'm told between those 4 sites, there are about 1,500 guests within those shelters.
Yeah, Salvation Army has gotten tens of millions of dollars over the past couple of years from the city of Denver to run these shelters. We'll see if that continues. Angeline McCall, thank you. 23andMe is going bankrupt, which is concerning to the thousands of customers who mailed them little vials of their spit. The good news is Colorado laws could help protect you and your genetic data. And chicks are so hot right now, but experts say they're not just a fix for an egg shortage. It's coming up next. If we've learned anything from the Trump administration this week, it's to double check before you send that risky message to the group chat. The White House says there will now be an investigation into how a journalist was added to a text chain between top national security officials as they planned military strikes in the Middle East. The National Security Council has confirmed the authenticity of a reported message thread between top officials like Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Jeffrey Goldberg, who's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, says he was surprised when the National Security Advisor added him to a chat earlier this month, and that he was even more surprised to see them discussing, quote, weapons packages and timing and targets for upcoming military strikes in Yemen. The White House insists none of those details were classified. So national security leaders, including the head of the CIA, were largely unapologetic about the leak in a Senate hearing today and wouldn't answer specific questions about how the journalist was added. That didn't sit well with Colorado Democrat Michael Bennet, who called the incident sloppy and embarrassing.
You don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread. Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that? This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment. Senator, you need to do better.
Today, President Trump told reporters his administration would look into it, but he also said, quote, wasn't that much of a leak. The National Security Advisor who invited Goldberg to the chat has learned his lesson. If you've ever given your DNA to 23andMe to try and trace your ancestry, might be time to try and delete that data. Luckily, we live in Colorado. The company has filed for bankruptcy and it's looking to sell its assets, which of course could include your genetics. The Attorney General in California, where the company is based, is warning Californians to take advantage of the state's privacy laws and delete their data. Colorado has a similar law requiring companies that collect data about consumers in the state to allow them to request their data be deleted, including biological information.
As a consumer, you'd probably be surprised how many different companies are getting access to your personal information. So we recommend you do everything you can to not share that information and restrict who has access to that information. And once a company has used that information to provide you a service, you should go in and make sure that they delete that information.
So if you're at home right now being like, yeah, that's me, we have in-depth instructions on how to delete your data in this story at 9news.com.
You don't raise a puppy any different than you raise something one of these. You give it attention, you get your feet, you make sure it's, you do your husbandry, you make sure that they're fed, they're watered.
People are flocking to pet supply stores right now to get cheaper eggs right from the source. Experts want you to think before you buy them. Next. Eggs are expensive right now. Expensive enough for a whole lot of people to decide it would be cheaper to just raise the chickens themselves until they realize how hard it is to raise chickens. Here's Amy Hunter.
This is a brooder kit that the feed store offers. It's everything that you're gonna need.
When it comes to raising chickens, Eric Fullenweider has a life's worth of knowledge.
To me, they're my calm.
He started bringing up chickens at 6 years old.
I've had them live up to be 12, 13 years old. You've got a time commitment.
Now, he's sharing that wisdom with others.
I cover diet, housing, egg production.
Eric teaches a chicken raising class at Wordle Feed and Pet Supply in Wheat Ridge.
You've got to make sure they're on the right diet, and you just have all the supplies for them beforehand instead of jumping into it and trying to do it.
He's seen interest in chicks rise and fall over the years. This year, that interest is high.
There's a lot of demand. There's more people doing it this year. And I don't know how much of it is attributed to the egg prices. It's so hard to tell, and it's so hard to judge because every year is different. And it's not just at this feed store, but all the feed stores are selling out the day they get the chicks in.
Eric says raising a chick isn't hard if you have the right information.
You don't raise a puppy any different than you raise something one of these. You give it attention, you make sure that they're fed, they're watered. It's not a difficult process. It's just a lot of wash, rinse, and repeat. But if you do it wrong, it can be detrimental.
He says local classes help new owners avoid deadly mistakes.
You can get a lot of information on the internet, but it's hit and miss. You can be on a chicken page talking to somebody in Arizona, and what you could do in Arizona wouldn't work here.
Chicks are a commitment Eric hopes people don't take lightly.
Nobody's ever an expert.
But with the right prep, it's a fun new world to join.
If you do it properly, you're going to get years of enjoyment out of it.
For Next, I'm Amy Hunter.
At least they're cute. Eric offers 2 classes a month for people wanting to learn more about raising chickens, but it's hard to even buy chickens right now. They're such a hot commodity. You have to snag them before they sell out, and make sure to do your research before going and just trying to get all the eggs yourself. Hey, we're back with your feedback next. Some very kind feedback from Janae, who says, hey, Mark, you handled that technical difficulty like a champ. Next is in good hands anytime Kyle is gone. All right, so I have been preparing for this moment for a long time because what you don't see is when Kyle's on the road doing live shows from like DC when he was there a couple weeks ago, I'm back here in the studio waiting just in case anything goes wrong. Today something went wrong and I was ready. We'll see you next time.